All right, chat. Let's see what this is all about. This is the rise and fall of the MCU. Let's get right into it.
What's up, my comic comrades? Get ready because today we are
I
talking
love this
about
dude. I love watching this guy. He actually does good videos.
the rise
This might be
and
a
fall
WV
of the Marvel
recommendation.
Cinematic Universe. Now, I know what a lot of you are saying, Eris, the MCU hasn't fallen. The DCEU is what fell and is over. And this is true. The MCU has not been
That is
scrapped
true.
like the DCEU
That
or
is
the
true.
Spider-Verse.
That is very
but guess
true.
what? The Marvel Cinematic Universe has most certainly been on a downtick since Endgame wrapped up the 10-year Infinity Saga back in 2019. That's something that's been debated for years, but at this point, it's just undeniable. Since the start of Phase 4 in 2021, the MCU has been all over the place, and most certainly on a decline pretty much across the board. Revenue, fan reception, quality of filmmaking, a clear story direction, and we could go on and on. The problem has become so obvious that it's escalated to the top of the Disney Corporation, with CEO Bob Iger making several damning statements about the state of the MCU in recent months, including his most recent comments at an investors conference in San Francisco, where he admitted that Disney has quietly canceled a number of projects that they didn't feel were strong enough. And while he didn't say which, if any of those were MCU projects, based on other comments Iger has made about the MCU shifting its focus back to its stronger franchises, we can say
I don't think the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been doing good, period. I'm going to be honest. Like, after the Avengers movies, this shit fell off hard.
safely assume
It fell
that
off
a
real
number
bad.
of previously announced
Fantastic Four need to save it. Like, this next
MCU
Deadpool movie is going to be
projects have
good,
gotten
but, like,
axed. For one example, Avengers The Kang Dynasty will at best be getting a new title, if not being scrapped completely. So that's what we're going to dive into here, how the once seemingly unstoppable Marvel Studios went from a box office guarantee to its current crisis state in just a few short years.
It went to
Also,
a
if you're
current
looking at
crisis
wondering where
state.
you can get one of these dope variants.
this movie went to a current crisis state because they tried to, like, push an agenda and tend to it. Like, and I'm not saying, like, the leftists or LGBTQ, like, they just started, like, making movies for, like, audiences that, like, nobody, like, for, like, people who don't even watch their fucking movies. Like, they started doing shit that didn't even make sense. Like, nobody, a lot of shit they made recently, nobody wants to watch.
Grab your own
It's
along
trash.
with a bunch of other Variant merch at our Variant Lab shop at variantcomics.com. It's a great way to rep the Variant Nation and support what we're doing here on the show. The link for that is in the description. Okay, so let's start this deep dive into the state of the MCU by establishing that the first 10 years of the MCU is what launched comic books and their characters to a level of pop culture awareness it had never seen before. Now,
True.
to be
That is
clear,
true.
the
That is very
1978
true.
Christopher Reeve Superman movie, the 89 Michael Keaton Batman movie, along with the Fox X-Men movies and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films were huge hits and pioneers of the genre. But when Iron Man came out in
Ooh,
2008,
Iron Man is
it was
gas.
the start of a new golden age.
Those movies were good. Iron Man movies were good. The MCU fell off after the Avengers movies. After that, none of the movies have been good. None of them.
Book films.
Not a single
it was
one.
the introduction
Not a
to a
single
universe
one.
of complex characters
They've
that
all
were
been straight
interconnected across several films. This
booty.
meant Robert Downey Iron Man could cross over with the Hulk, which he did in the very first MCU Hulk film when Edward Norton was still playing the Hulk. It also meant after the first Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Iron Man 2, and Thor movie, they could assemble and give us the Avengers on the big screen for the first time.
That is true.
which they
That is
did
true.
In 2012, and it was one of the most epic things to witness. We're spoiled now, but back in 2012, seeing the Avengers assemble for the first time in Manhattan, facing off against Loki and the Chitauri, was mind-blowing.
That was mind-blowing.
It gives me chills when I rewatch it because I remember the feeling of seeing it for the first time. After the first Avengers film was such a huge success for Marvel Studios, seeing that the fans,
I feel like Marvel just started
it
making
set
shit
us down
that
an
was just, like,
incredible road for the next
didn't make
10
any
years,
sense.
leading to a true boss fight.
Like, Madam Web was
all while
fucking
giving us
garbage.
great films along the way,
That movie
like
was so
Captain America,
bad.
Winter
Like,
Soldier, The
that's a
First
movie that I have to
Guardians
watch
of the
when I'm
Galaxy,
drunk.
Voltron, Ant-Man,
Like, if I'm
Captain
drunk, I
America,
just wanna
Civil
watch-
War,
I just wanna
Doctor
put I'll put on
Strange,
Madam
Black
Web
Panther,
and
with
just laugh at
others
how bad it
along
is.
the way, all leading to the incredible
Or, like,
Infinity
drunk
War
eating a
Endgame
pizza.
finale that wrapped up the first
You know?
10 years.
Just simple shit
When
like
you look
that.
at it all on paper, it really is astounding. What the MCU accomplished for film and fiction in the first 10 years is just mind-blowing. They were undeniably ruling the box office.
That is
in
true.
all of fiction for a
That is
decade,
true.
driving movie sales,
'Cause they were making
comic
good
sales,
movies.
merchandise, just everything.
They were making good movies that people wanted to actually watch. Like, the plot was good, the action was good, the acting was good. It was all good. It was masterpieces, 10 out of 10 across the board. They didn't get shit like Madam Web.
for the medium across the board. I'm not joking when I say generations will look back at the first 10 years of the MCU, starting in 2008 with Iron Man and ending with Endgame in 2019, even though
You get shit like Madam
Phase
Web.
3 ended with Spider-Man Far From Home as an iconic era for comics and movies. The MCU dominated the box office for so long, the A-list actors would even comment saying, if it's not a superhero film, it's probably not going to make money. With the success of the MCU, that meant other studios would have their own superhero films as well, bringing us into the golden age of comic book films, with the MCU undeniably leading the charge. But as the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. Or maybe it's the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Either way, that certainly seems to be where the MCU is for now. And while there is hope on the horizon with the current shakeups at Disney and Marvel Studios, let's take a look at how we got to where we are now. First and foremost, one of the major problems the MCU faced after Avengers Endgame was the fact that they lost the two pillars of the MCU. The two characters the entire universe was built on, Iron Man and Captain America, with the stories concluding in Avengers Endgame. Think about it, in the DC film world, that would be like getting rid of Batman and Superman. That is extremely detrimental. Now, you can't blame the MCU for this, as by that point, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans had been playing the characters for a decade. But nonetheless, that meant the MCU had to find characters the audience loved as much as Iron Man and Captain America to keep building off their shoulders as the universe needed to continue forward. Now, I'm not saying there weren't any other characters in the MCU that were up for that task to bear that cross, so to speak. In my opinion, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man, given their popularity, could have done that well. Black Panther would have been my number one pick, as he is literally the king of the most advanced civilization on the planet, extremely well-intentioned, fan-loved all around.
Black Panther was a phenomenal movie, man. Rest in peace. Wakanda forever, bro. Rest in peace.
Just a great character. The first Black Panther movie was great, and Chadwick Boseman's performance as Black Panther was phenomenal. The problem is the MCU and Kevin Feige weren't able to pass the torch to him, so to speak, as Chadwick Boseman unfortunately passed away. This forced the MCU to have to shift directions, both with the Black Panther sequel and with their plans going forward, as he was no doubt going to be an integral part. Rumor has it he was going to be the next leader of the Avengers, and that would have been gas. So again, that would have been Endgame, you lose the two characters your universe was built on, and the unfortunate passing of another one of your most popular characters. Also, Scarlett Johansson, aka Black Widow, one of their other core Avenger members, is also gone, and said she's only going to do one more film, which is a prequel to her story, so it's not even going to push her forward. So right out the gate, we didn't have Iron Man.
Black Widow was not even good anyway. I'm being honest.
Black Widow will make one more appearance in Phase 4.
She's a good actor, but
phasing her out, and
they're like
a new Black Widow, Yelena Belova. But even with
she's a good actor, but the way they write these movies is so bad. It's not even fucking funny. And Taskmaster, they made Taskmaster a girl. I'm not getting
all that. I still think the MCU could have stayed at a high, or at least higher than they are now, if they made different choices. To see what I'm talking about, we have to look at Phase 4. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying Phase 4 as a whole wasn't good, it just followed a slow decline. The first Phase 4 project after Avengers Endgame was WandaVision on Disney+, which released January 15th, 2021. Overall, it was a really solid series, giving us revelations of how Scarlet Witch and her brother Quicksilver got their powers, further rounding out their characters. Scarlet Witch is one of my favorite MCU characters, and I thought the series did a great job. They did a good job with her story, as well as introducing new characters like Monica Rambeau and Agatha. Then in March of 2021, we got the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I liked, and it seemed like that was the general audience reaction, where people liked it, but they weren't overwhelmingly flipping out about it. The series served as a setup to Sam Wilson as the new Captain America, which is a tough pill to swallow in the sense that Chris Evans had such a good run as the OG Captain America, it was going to be really hard for someone else to fill those shoes. I think Anthony Mackie did a good job, and I'm curious to see where they take it when he gets his solo Captain America movie next year. Then we have Loki Season 1. I don't have a bad thing to say about the Loki series. Loki Season 1 and 2 are easily the best thing to come out of Phase 4 and 5 thus far. And that's just a fact. I'm not even going to say that's my personal opinion. That is a fact. If you disagree with that, you're sleeping. But moving through these a little quicker, because there's a lot in Phase 4, 18 entries spread across movies and TV to be exact. After Loki, we got the Black Widow prequel movie that came out in July 2021. I dig this movie. I know it was polarizing, but I liked it for the most part. My only real gripe is Taskmaster. I said it on record countless times. You can call that character Taskmaster, but it is not Taskmaster.
Thank you.
Call the MCU version of Taskmaster Abomination. It's more of an abomination than the actual Abomination Hulk villain. Anyway, after this, we got What If Season 1. Again, really solid, no complaints. Then in September, they released Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings.
I actually like this movie.
Solid film. But after this, the seventh entry into Phase 4 is where I felt like we got the first big uh-oh moment, and that is with the Eternals film. To this day, Eternals is the second lowest ranked.
This movie could have been so good, bro. This movie could have been so good. This movie could have been so good. They fumbled it so
MCU
hard.
film on Rotten Tomatoes with a 47% critic score, with the lowest being only 1 point behind it. Now, I'm not saying I agree with Rotten Tomatoes or that they're always right, but for our purposes, it's a good gauge to get the general vibe and consensus. The biggest thing wrong with the Eternals, at least for me, is you just didn't care about these characters, which is so shocking considering what made the MCU so successful in the first place is how much they made you care about their characters.
That
but
is
in
true.
The Eternals, everything just felt forced, rushed, and not there. This is also where they started doubling down on changing characters from the comics for a film. Don't get me wrong, the MCU is no stranger to changing a character from the books for their
That is
films,
true.
but it seemed like they did it extra for this movie. To
They
be fair,
did.
not many people were familiar with the Eternals. In fact, unless you're a comic fan, you probably couldn't even name me 3 Eternals before this movie came out. But for better or worse, this did upset a certain chunk of the fandom. Either way, after the Eternals, we got the Hawkeye series, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Moon Knight. I dug Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean the fact that it brought back
Moon Knight season 2 needs to drop because I'm getting tired of like trying to find a good TV show to watch and like I mean I can't really get into Daredevil and Punisher. They're not bad. I just can't get into them. Tom Holland, he's a good Spider-Man. They need to drop the next Spider-Man movie already. Like nigga, it's been a minute. Like come on, it's been a minute. Like real talk. It's been too long.
Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield alone makes me giddy. They knew how to pull on our nostalgia strings, hence the movie being the 7th most successful film of all time, making $1.9 billion in theaters. So yeah, I think people enjoyed this film. But then we got Moon Knight, which was just serviceable. In hindsight, it was just okay. I did really enjoy Oscar Isaac's performance and do look forward to seeing him reprise the role, but as a whole, this season is nothing to rant and rave about. It also doesn't tie into the greater MCU all that much. It's very much its own thing. The first few Disney Plus releases they had, WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and certainly Loki, did deal with the fallout of Endgame or continue to push these characters' story forward, setting up for new things within the universe, but not so much with Moon Knight. As for the Hawkeye series, it's still one of my favorite Disney Plus MCU series. It did a bunch to flesh out his character, and I love his interaction with Kate Bishop. To that point, I think it did a really good job of setting up Kate Bishop for the future. So in our opinion, Hawkeye is definitely one of the bright spots in the last few years. But before we move on, we want to talk about Marvel characters in a different way, the gaming way. Can I tell you, I love me some Avengers. I also love fun games, so I'm extra excited about Avengers Infinity.
Don't care about pinball
Instant.
machines.
Miss Marvel is clearly a tween Disney Channel younger audience type show. That was the target
That
audience.
show
which
was
is
so
awesome for that
fucking
audience,
bad.
But your main audience is not that. And before
That show was so, I didn't even have to watch it to know how bad it was, bro. My God, don't even bring that
certain
up.
people start getting all huffy and puffy, I'm not saying the MCU shouldn't try new things. One of their strengths for the first 10 years was trying a lot of new things, like Ant-Man being a heist film, Guardians of the Galaxy being a
Ant-Man
space
was
adventure,
good.
and so on.
Guardians
but
of
at
the
a
Galaxy
time where
was
you really
good.
have to be locking in your core audience and showing them, hey, look at this cool thing that's coming. We got dopeness ahead. You need to be selecting more fan favorite characters and do shows that appeal to your main demographic. But instead, a little bit after Miss Marvel, they gave us She-Hulk Attorney at Law.
The show
is
was
quite
this show
possibly the
was
most
literally
hated
just
thing
funny
in
to
all
watch.
of Phase 4, or even
It was just funny to
post
watch.
Endgame
I watched all
so
of
the
it.
type
It
of
was
shows
fun.
and character selections they were giving us wasn't
Like,
the best.
It
Again,
wasn't even about her being a Hulk. It was just about her being a woman and having powers. Like it wasn't like it had nothing to do with being a Hulk. It was just her having powers and being a woman. It was just funny how they did it too. They wrote it so terribly bad. I was like, this shit is horrendous. It was just funny. Like
at a
it,
time
like it was just terrible.
where you
It
lost
was
some of
just
your
terrible.
best characters and needed to give us some bangers to keep us excited, this didn't feel like the best route. I know a Blade film with Mahershala Ali is coming, rumors of Ghost Rider and the Midnight
Ooh,
Sun
I didn't even
and
hear. I
so
didn't even know
on,
about Ghost Rider,
they
but
should have led with that. You give
They
us those
definitely
fan-loved
should've.
characters you've yet to introduce in the MCU up front and give us a new direction to keep the fan base excited.
That is
Then
true.
Sprinkle in those lesser known or loved characters to try new things and build out the universe more. We would have much rather had the X-Men up front instead of now just finally getting them teased. Now I know Deadpool and Wolverine is probably going to do a fantastic job setting them up, but you're telling me it wouldn't have made more sense right after Endgame to jump right onto the X-Men? That would have kept the MCU at a high because everyone freaking loves the X-Men.
That is
a
true. The
big
X-Men
reason
is-
why we're so excited for
I love the X-Men. I love the cartoons. I love the movies. The X-Men cartoons and movies are good. They're gas. They're
Deadpool
great.
and Wolverine.
Love
but
that.
instead, you gave us Miss Marvel and turned her into a mutant by the end of the series, even playing the X-Men theme briefly in the season finale to force us to care about her as she's now a mutant tied to the X-Men. The only
Notice how she's only in like one cartoon adaptation? Just think
The
about
reason why
that.
they changed her
It's
into
like
a
one or
mutant in the
two.
show
Think about
is
it.
so she could be an X-Men and we would care about her more. And
We don't
then,
give
of
a fuck
course,
about
Marvel
her.
Comics had to follow suit and also make her a mutant in the comics because Marvel Publishing often wants to reflect the films to keep everything in unison. But also the Inhumans, both in the comics and the MCU. Remember that god-awful
Oh, and then she was in that game, that Marvel Avengers game. That game was fucking trash, nigga. That shit was a 2-pack of ass.
TV show? Yeah, me either. Wasn't received well. They tried to make the Inhumans the new X-Men because the MCU didn't have the rights to the X-Men films at the time, but fans were like, yeah, that's not happening. So the fact that we got characters like Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, even Moon Knight, who I love as a character, and then Werewolf by Night before the X-Men and Fantastic Four is mind-boggling. And I don't want to hear they didn't have the rights. No, that is bullcrap. Disney acquired the rights to the X-Men and Fantastic Four in 2019 when they bought Fox. Phase 4 didn't start till 2021, so if they would have put some hustle in it, we could have gotten the X-Men and Fantastic Four like 3 years ago. Then in between, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, and the new characters that were introduced, they still were doing legacy characters, so to speak, from the first 10 years. For example, right after Moon Knight, we got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which was plagued with horrible CGI and a not great story overall. They straight up missed the mark on that, which is unfortunate because I love Doctor Strange and Benedict Cumberbatch in the role. And then it pains me to say it, but after Miss Marvel, we got Thor: Love and Thunder. This is the worst entry in the entirety of the MCU, in my personal opinion. Because they took Thor, one of the most beloved characters of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, one of the founding members of the Avengers, and ruined him. They literally made him the punchline of every joke and a complete imbecile. So much so Hemsworth has gone on the record basically saying that if they do a Thor 5, the tone would have to be very different. I mean, for God's sake, Thor was in a love triangle with Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. And don't even get me started on Gore the God Butcher.
It doesn't even make sense.
Much like I said earlier about Taskmaster, you can call that Gore the God Butcher, but that's not Gore the God Butcher. No butchering was had. So even with their legacy characters, so to speak, from the first 10 years, they were still missing the mark. And I think a lot of that had to do with letting their directors and creatives have too much free reign. Especially when a lot of these directors and creators admittedly weren't fans of the characters and just took the job for the money. Taika was literally on Jason Bateman's podcast saying he took the job because he needed money for his family and he thought Thor was always a goofy character. So it's like, what did you expect?
Yeah, I don't.
Clear here, we're not blaming the filmmakers.
I don't even want to know.
Marvel Studios, as they're the ones hiring these people.
I don't even know why he thought that would
over
work.
to people who know nothing about the characters or care about them and expect these films to come out good. You might get lucky every once in a while.
That's like me making like a Halo TV show and not following the plot. Oh wait, that happened, and that shit was the 2-pack of ass.
Happened, but it's a big gamble. The only reason why you're making these films is because of how loved the stories are in the books. So wouldn't you want to get people who love and respect the source material? In any case, this brings us to Phase 5, which is not complete yet. Phase 4 started with WandaVision and ended with the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which was a ton of fun. Nothing bad to say about it. But there was a lot of stuff in the middle of these that was not the best. Phase 5 kicked off at the beginning of last year in February with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Yet again, another character from the first 10 years many of us love, but for whatever reason, this film was just not it. Also, out of all the films you could have made Kang the main antagonist for, you decided to make him the main villain in an Ant-Man movie? That just seems like an odd choice from the beginning. This film was not good. The only redeeming qualities of the film, in my opinion, is Kang. And let's speak about Kang for a minute because this is another important part of why I feel the MCU started going downhill. For the first 10 years, we knew.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? The directors of Marvel, the directors who made the Marvel Avengers movies, never read a Marvel comic in their life. I'm starting to believe that all these Marvel movies that come out, they never read a comic in their life. These niggas are just writing shit I think is fire. I'm starting to assume that out of all these movies, these niggas never read a comic in their life. They didn't, bro. Because there's no way you make a Marvel movie and it's this fucking bad.
His impending arrival throughout several of their films, ultimately leading to Infinity War and Endgame. Kang, not so much. He was introduced in the finale of Loki Season 1 and then didn't reappear until Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which is crazy because this was still very early on in Phase 4. So we were all like, yeah, that's our next big bad for the MCU. But then nothing. There was legitimately 15 entries into the MCU across TV and movies after his introduction that did nothing to further Kang's arrival and tease how big of a threat he will ultimately be. It's almost like they weren't sure that's the route they wanted to go, so they needed some time to make sure that's what they wanted to do. I love Kang, he's a great character, big fan of him in the comics, so I was happy to see him in live action, but again, they should have introduced the Fantastic Four around 2021, 2022 and told us the big bad was going to be someone like Galactus. I mean, the dude literally
Galactus literally would have made sense.
Threat, while simultaneously introducing
that literally would have made
Doom,
sense.
which would also lead into something like Secret Wars. We are rumored to be getting a Secret Wars film with Doctor Doom now, but that's only seemingly because they had to ditch Kang because of everything that came out in real life with Jonathan Majors. Either way, the point is the lack of a clear direction with the big bad hurt the anticipation for the MCU, as there wasn't really something for fans to look forward to or to follow and try to link together. Also, the way they were building Kang seemed more on the actual actor than the character, which I thought was really weird. There was so much emphasis on Jonathan Majors as Kang and not necessarily the threat that Kang is as a character. So I feel like that didn't help them out either. Anyway, let's continue. After Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, we got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which was good. Super solid film, but it was the end of an era, essentially wrapping up this version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then we have the most current Phase 5 movie at the time of making this video, The Marvels. It's the MCU's biggest flop, the worst box office performance out of any film they ever released. Because
I'm saying this now, and I mean this from every being of my fiber of my soul and my heart. Good characters. Good characters in the comics. It's just another iteration of media with women with powers. Nothing special about it. They don't do nothing crazy. It's a terrible movie. It's just, hey, I'm a woman, I have powers, and that's it. Like there's no depth. There's no meaning. There's no charm to it. It sucks. Good characters, good actors, just terrible writing.
Fans were just not intrigued with Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel. Now, you could say superhero fatigue was setting in, which I do believe is a thing, but at the same time, the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which was released a few months earlier, made over $800 million worldwide.
Good writing, good characters, good acting,
it's just
good acting, good characters, terrible writing.
Characters they want to see. The age of fans just seeing any Marvel or DC movie is gone. That time has passed. You have to earn moviegoers' money now. But even MCU TV has been on the decline, like Secret Invasion.
I know it's just fucking trash.
Really did not like it, and that's because it wasn't great. They ruined the Super Skrulls and just Skrulls in general. I feel like the MCU doesn't know what they want to do with the Skrulls. Are they good guys? Are they bad guys? Are they misunderstood? They don't know. Then we got Loki Season 2, which was phenomenal, one of the best things the MCU has ever done. This felt like something that would have come out during the first 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't have a bad thing to say about it. It was phenomenal, so I'll give them that. What If Season 2 was also good, but then they gave us Echo, which was not the best.
Didn't even hear about it. That's how bad it is.
Why did we get this instead of, I don't know, something on Nova, another character we've all been waiting to see? However,
we would love to see him like that.
We have X-Men 97,
which is gas, by the way.
Disney Plus.
You want to watch something good? You want to go watch this. This is good.
First two episodes were pretty amazing. We had our fingers crossed for this one, like many of you, but so far it's a ton of fun and a solid continuation to the original series. We also have Agatha Darkhold Diaries coming later this year, which may or may not put the MCU
pretty sure is going to be terrible.
Spot. But that's pretty much where we are right now for the MCU as we wait for Deadpool and Wolverine, which looks tremendous. So hopefully this could be where the MCU starts to tick back up again. To sum things up, what we're saying is the MCU hasn't completely fallen, but it has certainly fallen off from where it's been. There is no denying that the MCU has been struggling for the last few years. Certainly the last two. Revenue and box office is showing that. So the next 2 years is going to be very crucial to see if the MCU will eventually go the way of the DCEU. But as I said in the open, one of the most telling things about the seriousness of Marvel's current state is the fact that Bob Iger has taken a much more intense position on the future of the MCU, stating quantity hurt quality, and they followed that by reducing Marvel Studios' 2024 movie slate to just one film. And Iger has since canceled projects they, quote, no longer believe in. Again, there's been a ton of speculation about which MCU project has gotten the axe. I'm looking at you, Eternals, too. But no matter what, the fact that they're making these drastic moves says it all. So this is why it's extremely important that Deadpool and Wolverine succeed at course correcting. Because if it's not good, a lot of people are going to check out, and it's going to be extremely difficult for the MCU to garner attention and regain momentum. I honestly believe if Deadpool and Wolverine fails,
that is literally true.
At the permanent downfall of the MCU. However, it most likely is going to be good, so I don't think that's going to happen.
If that movie fails, I give up completely on the
Marvel,
MCU.
Star Wars, Pixar, and so on has to focus on storytelling and not messaging. He was admitting in CEO language that they made a mess. He's aware it's an issue and that things need to change. So again, hopefully the massive shakeups underway leads to a solid course correction for a franchise many of us love. I know we certainly do not want it to fail. But what do you guys think? Do you think the MCU can redeem itself with some of its upcoming projects? What's been your take on Phase 4 and Phase 5 so far? Let us know down in the comments. Other than that, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.
That was a good video. Yeah, pretty much sum it up. MCU sucks. The writing sucks. The movies are fucking terrible. The movies fucking suck. They're fucking terrible. Like, I don't even really know what you could really say about it.